In my videos on lapping chisels and also on sharpening chisels and plane irons, I've stressed how important it is to have flat sharpening stones. Now this applies particularly to water stones or oil stones. If you've got diamond stones or ceramic stone or something like that, or you use Scary Sharp, you can switch this video off now because it doesn't really apply to you. We're looking at stones, flattening stones that can become worn. And this particularly applies to water stones because they do wear quite quickly. So you need to keep a check on them, make sure they're nice and flat, because if they're not flat, then that out of flatness will be transferred to the back of your chisel or plane iron, and then you've got problems. So we'll have a look at how we go about flattening a stone. Let's have a look at what I mean by a stone not being flat. So I've got my 1000 grit stone here, and if I offer the ruler up to it, I don't know if you can see, there's a bit of light shining underneath. This is actually slightly domed, this stone. Can you see there's light shining out on the left hand side there? That's probably where a student's been lapping on this stone, lapping a chisel or something on this stone. They've been rubbing it on either edge and it's left it high in the middle. If I flip it over, you can get the you can see the classic where you can see the light shining in the middle there. Yeah, can you see that light shining there? And there'll also be a little bit there in that direction. So this stone needs flattening. You do need to be a little bit careful that the ruler that you use is true in that direction, not just in that direction. If it's not true in that direction, if you don't hold it perfectly right angles to the stone, you'll get a false reading, because if it's slightly bent like that, then when you hold it on the stone, if you've not got it at right angles, it might show light at either end or in the middle, depending on which way you lean it over. So you need to have a good ruler for testing your stone, or for testing a lot of things. I use two different media for flattening stones. The common factor between the two media is a piece of float glass, which we use to establish as a datum to establish flatness. For coarser stones, I use some drywall screen. This is 100 grit drywall screen produced for the building industry for abrading plasterboard walls and things after they've been plastered. So I'll use that on the coarser stone. So I'll flatten in a few minutes. I'll flatten the 1000 grit stone on that. Coarser stones tend to wear out more quickly than the finer stones. I have used 220 grit stones before, but I've not found them terribly useful because they just do wear so quickly. You just got to wave a chisel over them; they seem to go out of flat. So I haven't really pursued them. The coarsest stone I use is 1000 grit. For the finer stones, I'll use wet and dry abrasive. Again on float glass. This is 240 grit, which should be fine for the 6000 and the 10,000 grit stones that I have. So for the drywall screen, I clamp it down onto the bench with the glass underneath, and I use it progressively. I bought this drywall screen in a 5 metre, I think, length from Workshop Heaven, and I'm working my way progressively through it. So at this end, I've got the screen that I've actually used already, and then at the other end, I've got the unused screen. And as I use it, I'll shuffle it across. And then when I've got to the end, I'll be able to turn it over and use the other side, so you get double usage out of it. Now, to aid finding out whether your stone is getting flat, it's good to put some felt tip markings on, and then as the felt tip gets worn away, the stuff that's left is where the low point will be, and you know you've got it flat when you've left with no felt tip marks left. Okay, so want a bit of water on it and on the stone, just to carry all the slurry away, because we're going to be creating quite a lot of slurry when we're flattening it. Okay, so you can see it's coming away quite quickly. This is the domed one, and you can see that there's still some markings down either side. Quite a lot of the grit on the drywall screen will be detaching from the screen, and we need to make sure that we wash the stone thoroughly after we finish, because obviously we don't want the stone contaminated with the grit. That's looking pretty good. There's just a little bit left down here which I need to get rid of. I'm just going to check. Yeah, that's not bad. A little bit more there. Turn it over and do the other side. It's always worth doing both sides when you've got the equipment out. It's silly just to do one side. I can still see a little bit down there which we need to get rid of. A little bit there still. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's quite tricky to use the ruler for testing like this while the stone's still wet, because the water will soak up to the ruler and you won't be able to actually see light shining through, because it's sort of, there's mucky water all underneath it. So what I'm going to do is go away and wash this, dry it out, and then we'll check to see how flat it is. For finer stones like the 4000 grit there and the 10,000 grit, I don't like to use a drywall screen because it's too coarse really. So what I'm going to do is use this 240 grit wet and dry sheet on some float glass. Ignore this stuff that's underneath. This is from some previous lapping. So we've got a nice flat surface there which I'm going to put the wet and dry onto. I'm going to try and stick it on with the surface tension of the water, so I'm just wetting the back of the paper and the glass and trying to, I may end up having to hold it down, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I've marked the surface with the felt tip, and we're just going to rub it on to high up. And you can see it was fairly flat to start with, so there's not a lot to do on this one. So again, I'll go and wash the residue off there, and I'll probably wash it off the wet and dry because I'm now going to go and do a finer stone on it. So I'm now doing the fine one. These finer stones don't wear so fast because they're a little bit harder, but it's still worth checking them occasionally and just touching them up a bit. this fine stone, you end up with a problem with it sticking to the paper through surface tension, which is what's happening now. So we're almost there. There's just a little bit there which is not quite gone. Still a bit there. I think we're just about there. I'm now going to go away and wash these and dry them out. So I've dried out these stones, and we can now check to see how flat they are, and that's looking reasonable. I can't see any light shining underneath there or along there. And similarly with this fine one, looking quite reasonable. One last thing about this flattening, you do need to check regularly whether your stones need flattening, but flattening often means that you do actually end up with your stone getting quite thin. There's one that I don't use anymore, which has become useless virtually. It's getting very, very thin. You can see how thin it is compared with this one, which is by no means new. This has had some wear on it as well. One way to avoid too much wear on your stones is to try and get your sharpening done with as few strokes as possible. And if you look at the sharpening video, I'll show you how we go about doing that.